All right, let's get started. If you would, please stand. We'll do the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for allowing us to be here tonight. We thank you for our faculty and staff. We thank you for our students. We thank you for all the families that are represented in our school system. We ask that your hand be upon us, that you would lead, guide, and direct in our decision making. And God, that you'd be in the forefront of our minds like you should be. Lord, that you'd be exalted, high and lifted up. Lord, we do thank you once again. We love you. We thank you for loving us. We ask all these things in your precious holy name. Amen.
Amen. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. We have approval of the agenda. Do you have anything to add to the agenda?
No, sir.
All right. All those in favor by show of hands? So moved. Let's go into discussion items. Mr. Sale, please.
This evening, Dr. Brandon Sutton is here to present the mental health plan, which is something that we are required to do, and I just want to commend him and his team for working on this so diligently. They have done a fabulous job, and it's going to set us ahead in a lot of ways. So, Dr. Sutton, the floor is yours and Miss Sneeds.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
So, we were charged this year with addressing two state laws, State Law 2019-245 and State Law 2027. The State Board of Education published policy SHLT 003, and that is school-based mental health. And in that is requires us to do a needs assessment and a resource mapping, and then to create a plan to address student mental health in the school. We met, counselors and social workers and I sat down and reviewed our SHAPE assessment, which is through the University of Virginia, I believe. And it's assessment to see where you're at in providing support in mental health. So we looked at all the school's data and mapped out our strengths and weaknesses. And I think some of the strengths we have is that we have guidance counselors in all of our schools. We have social workers and school nurses at least 80% of the time in our school, in all of our schools. And they work as a team very well. And there's a good communication protocols between them and their admins already. So that was one of our big strengths. The leader in me is also a strength. The Castles recognize that as a strong core social, emotional, mental health program for schools. So having that and already having implemented that in our schools is a strength for us also. So through this, there was 6 components we had to address, which is universal mental health and mental and social emotional wellness. That's our leader and me. How do we strengthen that? And there's some steps that we can take there. A referral program. So if we have students that need access to community agencies, we have to create a plan to help parents connect with those other agencies. And we were also, part of that is to create MOAs, MOUs with local agencies to provide support to students. So we've worked with Blue Ridge Health, working on an MOU to do teletherapy in all of our schools. They have been primarily based out of Swain Middle School for the past 2 years. Next year, they're working on a plan to provide telehealth and teletherapy to all K-12 students. The Cherokee Indian Hospital, Analagiski, I think I may have butchered that. I have met with them, and we're working on a MOA to partner with them to serve our enrolled students. And then we're also working with Appalachian Community Services. They help provide our day treatment. And they are also the organization that provides mobile crisis if there is a suicide threat. And Barbara will speak to that in just a moment. We also have to have a plan to do 6 hours next year of employee training on youth mental health, suicide awareness, substance abuse, sexual abuse, sex trafficking, and teenage dating violence. We have to provide 6 hours. Mark has agreed to buy Vector Solutions. They offer a comprehensive employee training.
We're not buying the company.
We're not buying it. We're buying the program from them. They actually provide 5.5 hours of the required training. The rest of the training, we're hoping to Darkness to Light was sex trafficking and child sexual abuse training that the state provided to us as a result of State Law 2019, 245. That state law required sex trafficking and child sexual abuse training starting this past year, 2 hours of that for school employees, and then an additional 2 hours on even number years. Then 2020 law, there's some conflict there that they're trying to work out. But anyhow, so we're going to purchase that. That provides 5.5 hours, Vector Solutions. And then hopefully we can still have Darkness to Light to do the sex trafficking and child sexual abuse, and that will give us our 6 hours of initial employee training next year. And then the next thing we have to do is work on community engagement to make the community more aware of student mental health. Every year we have to review this plan, and all information has to be shared with the state by September 15th. So we created a plan. I think our draft plan you have, and it outlines our goals for next school year. I have to report that plan to the state by September 15th. And then also in there is our draft PD plan. At the time of creating that draft, we had not yet partnered with Vector Solutions, so that plan's going to look slightly different now that we're going to move forward with partnering with Vector Solutions. And Barbara's going to share out one of the important parts is a suicide risk protocol that schools have to create.
So I've got a couple things to mention. The first thing is I have a crisis intervention flow chart, and I've got a copy of you guys. This is a draft copy that I don't think you have the latest version on. And this is, like I said, this is still draft. So oftentimes, when students are in crisis, it happens in class or possibly in the hallways with students. And so we are notified at some point, and this kind of is just a visual for our staff to have in their hands in their classrooms so that they know what to do when something happens in their class, if it's during class or they're emailed something or they hear about it from another student, because that does often happen that way. And it just stresses, not to leave them alone and to notify care team and admins, and we kind of take it from there. And that's the main thing that we want to stress to them. And then at that point, that's where our suicide risk screening process comes. And you don't have a copy of this yet, because like I said, it's still in draft form, but we will get you a copy of it. But the main thing is that we would ask them, and this is stuff that we've kind of been doing at different times in the schools, the main questions, if they wish to be dead or if they've had suicidal thoughts, basically. And those are the main two questions that we do ask. And then depending on their questions, we may go into 2 other questions about possible thoughts and method or an intent with the plan. And that is basically to share more information with mobile crisis, because at that point, if they've answered yes to those questions, those first 2, we would call mobile crisis and we would go ahead and initiate an assessment on that student, and we would notify the parent. So that's the 2 things that we do. We would help facilitate that appointment with mobile crisis, which is through Appalachian Community Services. And we, at the high school, probably in the last, 2 years, we've actually, we help them, we facilitate that to happen off campus at their office here in Bryson at Appalachian Community Services. So what we often do is we call mobile crisis and we kind of see where they're at, because sometimes they could be in Murphy, they could be in their office at Balsam, they could be here in Bryson, it just depends. So they can kind of give us a time frame when we call the parent. So when we call the parent at work or at home and say, we really need your son or daughter to go and have an assessment made, and if you'll come to the school and pick them up, it may be a couple of hours. We kind of give them a time frame on what to expect, because, as you can think, I think most of you guys, all of you guys are parents. When you hear something like that on the phone, it's like you don't hear anything else other than you're worried about your child. So we try to make it as easy as possible and step them through the process of, we care about your child. Your child is safe at school with me right now. We're not going to take our eyes off your child, And at that point, we help them facilitate that appointment to get the assessment. They have to come pick them up. If they're a driver, they're not allowed to drive their vehicle, obviously. They have to come pick them up, take them to the assessment. And then even in this screening process, there are some some addendum things here. There's an authorization for release of information that when they come and pick their student up, if they see a doctor or if they're going to be seeing Appalachian or maybe Alleneski, whoever they wish to go see, because they may not choose to go through Appalachian, they may choose to go through Cherokee Indian Hospital or even go to the ER. They would fill this out so that we could call and follow up easier than having to pry, and call the parent. Then there's also a page here with a coping plan that once reentry happens, once they come back to school, whether it be the next day or whether it be a week or two later, depending on the outcome of the assessment, we can help with the coping plan if we need to. Also, we could use this coping plan even if it doesn't get to this step. Sometimes, they just come in and they are in crisis, but it's not to the point where they need an assessment, and we could use a coping plan that we could have on file with these students. And if they transfer from elementary or to middle or middle to high school, it could travel with them if needed, so that we have a little more information on that student rather than they're a ninth grader and we know that they can't cope and they have anxiety. We have a little bit more information, And then there is also two other pieces in here. There is a parent guardian notice that when they do pick their child up, if they're picking them up to take them for an assessment, that they understand there's some boxes here that they would initial or check, that they're picking them up, that they're going to provide increased supervision, not to leave them alone, that they're going to share with the school names of other professionals helping their child, that they're going to sign a release, that they're going to have a reentry meeting with us, with a follow-up with whatever happens at the assessment. And there's also some emergency numbers at the bottom if they were to need those. And then the last page on this little packet here are just tips for keeping your child safe. And that would be just a resource handout that they would get to take home with them as well. So again, this is still in draft form because we're still working on it. But that's kind of where we're at with this as far as the crisis side of it.
Do you have any questions?
Now, I'm assuming the training you do, there is a part of that deals with, for example, in a classroom, teacher picking up on certain key things about a student. Because a lot of students don't show it or won't talk about it.
There is. At the beginning of the school year, we go over that at the high school especially, and I think they do at the other schools as well. Kind of go over cues and what to look for, signs. And then we also go over, we haven't had this visual, we've used something different in the past, but we always go over at the beginning of the year what the steps are and who to call, who to come get, etc. at the beginning of the year. But yeah, we always do those refreshers.
Good.
2 of the 6 required hours are actually youth suicide awareness, prevention, and postvention. So that's the third of the 6 required hours is over that suicide identification, looking for the signs.
We've had several over the years. I mean, I recall them, and it stays with you because you.
Is it online training or is it face to face?
It is online, and then we have past this initial year, this first year, everybody in our system, everybody that works with students has to have 6 hours. So to me, that means from bus drivers, cafeteria, anybody that works directly with students needs the 6 hours. And then every year after that, if it's an even odd number of year, it's 2 hours of training. And then on even number of years, this is the conflict between the 2 laws, it's 4 hours. So 23, 24 school year, that would start as an odd number. So that's 2 years of training, additional training. And then 24, 25 school year, that would be currently, as it stands, would be 4 hours of revisiting all of these trainings.
One of the nice pieces about it being online training, Travis, is that it allows for it to be asynchronous. And that allows for the teachers and the staff to do it whenever they have a slot in their schedule. Yeah. Otherwise, we have to block time, and that can be a critical issue sometimes.
And some of the important follow-up, the 2 hours, like Mr. Holden out at West is, it's mental aid, first aid. That's not what it is. He's got some training that can support the additional 2 hours of follow-up training. So that is one piece that we can use. And we also have some people that have some ACEs training, and that is mental health training also that we can support with.
Now, Brandon, do we need approval on that tonight, or is this a notification
Just
only?
notification.
Okay.
Just let you know what's going on. And then we'll have everything finalized and submitted on September 15th. But most of it will be done by August, when teachers come back, because we need to they have 6 months to complete the training.
Right.
So we need to roll that out day one so they can schedule that in and get that done in the first 6 months next year. And then like this needs to go out day one, so when students come back, teachers know how to respond to anything they may see in the classroom.
And of course, we have the Say Something social app also that's available for students and for staff. That's another catch for students who are struggling.
Yeah, the Say Something apps lets a peer report, or you can self-report if you're experiencing anything from bullying to a mental health crisis. And then that is staffed, and the staff at the company notifies
Right.
administration so that we can address or go ahead. They notify law enforcement if needed.
Is that utilized a lot?
Well, I don't know that it was utilized a great deal this year, Barb. When it was newer,
And a handful of times, I think,
Yeah.
that it's come to me.
but that's because this has I don't want to call it a fail-safe, but by going to the trained counselor at the regional or national center, they're able to deal with some of the issues, and then they're pretty quick if they see that there's something that's really troubling to cue that back to either one of us or to Barb or to Brandon. All of us get an alert at about the same time on that.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. McKinney, is the CTE local application. Teresa Hayes is our director of CTE, and she's going to give you just a little bit of an update on CTE, but she's also going to need for us to approve this evening and get a signature if we can. So don't hesitate to ask her questions, because she is a genius.
I'll address this a little bit more as I'm talking about CTE, but I'm having. So good evening. I'm here for approval of our local CTE application for our state and federal funding. You have the request letter in your packet with an explanation of the 4 parts of the CTE local plan that is addressed in the 113-page document, which I did not print for you, which I keep in my binder here. However, the detailed CTE local plan is online, and I will be happy to share that link with you if anyone would like to dig down and see all the details of the local plan. In order to secure funding for the CTE program, I must address the 8 performance indicators as shown in Part 1 of the Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, and also in Part 2. Basically, I address where we are now, where we want to go, and the strategies and action steps of how we are to get there. Part 2 and Part 3 does not apply to us, since we no longer offer a local course option and do not offer a work-study program. The new Perkins 5 legislation, Strengthening CTE for the 21st Century, changed the process of the CTE local plan last year. CTE directors are now only required to update the local plan every 2 years, unless something has changed and modifications are needed. There are no changes for this coming year. Therefore, all that is required is your approval of the plan as is. To give you some feedback and background as to how this plan evolved, beginning in the 2019-2020 school year, all CTE programs are required to conduct a comprehensive local needs assessment, which included forming a CTE leadership team of various school personnel, conducting surveys and having discussions with CTE stakeholders regarding our CTE programs, then coming back together as a leadership team to review surveys and evaluate the CTE performance indicators and where we stand compared to the state goals. 2 surveys were sent to request feedback regarding the CTE program. The first was sent to the CTE Advisory Board, CTE Business Advisory Board, and the second survey was sent to the high school students. As a result of the surveys, local market analysis, and student interest, CTE added additional pathways. They are the business management pathway, computer engineering technology, and travel and tourism, which that one will be taught in the future when there's enough interest to support it. This year with registration, the numbers weren't quite there. Although most all of our program areas grew quite a bit in our numbers. And in fact, the teacher that I had that was designated to teach that course, she gained a whole nother section. So, and then the numbers were so low on this one, so we just kind of had to push that one to the side. But hopefully, in the future, I feel like that's something that's really would be beneficial for this community to have a travel and tourism pathway in our schools. In addition to these pathways, the career management course became a required course in the freshman academy, replacing the Principles of Technology course. The career management course is designed so that all students in the 9th grade are exploring careers and gaining essential skills that is going to get them hired. Skills that employers say are lacking in the workplace, such as problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, flexibility, time management, communication, effective reasoning, and commitment. These skills are important drivers of success in school and in adult life. They will help students be self-advocates and will positively affect their high school experience and graduation status. The career management course empowers students to create a roadmap to success while in high school, make informed decisions, and take ownership of their high school and future goals. We want to teach students how to take advantage of every possible resource and opportunity to fulfill their goal of either going to college, a trade school, or joining the workforce or military after graduation. Students will learn how to use the Swain County High School CTE Pathway and Course document, which is what I just handed to you. They will learn about credentials, articulation credit, and college and career prep courses to fast-track their education and save money. So the document that I handed you there shows the 14 different pathways that CTE offers in Swain County High School. In addition, well, included in that 14 are the 4 that we offer with Southwestern Community College, where students can leave our high school certified and go out and get a job in welding, in carpentry. Automotive, right now we have a part-time teacher, but if that program grows, that will become a full-time position where hopefully those students will earn the certification here. But for right now, they're part-time, and then they'll go on to Southwestern and finish automotive. But we have an awesome opportunity here for our students that many schools don't have by having these opportunities with us Southwestern instructors on our campus. Southwestern provides the instructors, the salary for the instructors, and CTE supports the program with equipment and supplies. And so it's a great win-win for our school and our program and our community. And those programs are, this year I was amazed at how our programs are growing. And I think that's a combination of we've got really good instructors, and we have opened it up this year to 10th grade if their grades are sufficient, because there is a requirement through the community college before a 10th grader can sign up those classes. So we have opened that up to 10th graders because the business and industry folks are really in dire need of those people to graduate and be certified. So we're trying to do what we can to help support our stakeholders. And the other thing is that career management class. Our teachers in that career management class are doing a fantastic job of helping these students figure out pathways. And when I'm talking about pathways, if you look on this document, to be a CTE, all of our performance indicators, when they start looking at our numbers and things that I have to address, the one underlying thing they look at is our concentrators, right? So to be a concentrator, and I explain this to students, like if you go to college, before you graduate, you have to declare a major, right? You have to business or teach education. If you want to go on into law or whatever, you're going to declare a major. So that's kind of the same thing as the CTE concentrator in high school. You're going to declare what your concentration is. And so there's 14 choices that they have right here. And so this document is something that when you first look at it, it can be a little overwhelming, and that's why our career management class takes this document and does a really good job to break it down so that students understand. You can quickly look on here and see what course offers honors. You can quickly see what's inherently honors. It just comes that way because of the course itself. And so also some of the courses they can't take until their 10th through 12th grade, or they may be able to take it as a freshman. So all of that information is on here, and it's very important that our students understand and can start helping plan their own future in high school and their career pathway. It used to be before Perkins 5 that you had to have 4 classes in a pathway to be a concentrator, and that has totally changed to now it's 2 and sometimes only 3 classes. So it gives students more opportunity to concentrate in more areas and to explore, and that's what we want them to do, beginning in middle school, even as far down now, we're looking at 5th grade, really pushing career exploration, and then middle school, and definitely in high school. It's better for them to explore now than when they get in college, because it's a lot more costly with time and money. So we want them to have a lot of knowledge. On the back of that sheet, if you will look, it will list all the different certifications that we offer our students. There are national certifications that are considered post-secondary. They can leave high school and they're recognized out in the business world. So, and those are absolutely free, except for the pharmacy tech, and right now it's free because it's under a grant. That is it's a very expensive program to offer, and on top of that, it's like $299 per student that CTE pays just for the curriculum, and then an additional $129 for the credential. So I seek grants to help fund that. But that, the CNA program, the Adobe, well, I don't have my list right here, but anyway, AutoCAD, CPR, and all of those are important job skills to have and certifications that students can come out and show an employer. One time I had a student that she got certified in ServSafe, and she went down to the local Subway, and she had heard they were needing somebody, and so she goes in, and he's like, I just don't have time to talk to you right now. If you want to come back in a week or two, I'm just swamped. And she said, okay, but I just want you to know I have ServSafe certification. And he said, wait just a minute. And he hired her because he knew he was not going to have to train her and take that extra time. He knew she had already had that because she had that certification, so it got her a job that quickly. So that's what we're trying to do, and help our students and our employers by having those credentials ready. So let me get back to where I was. I get sidetracked because I get excited about CTE, can you tell? And all the opportunities that we offer our students. So, as I said, we have 14 different pathways. We have 4 career technical student organizations. They're Skills USA, FCCLA, FFA, and HOSA. Those organizations are very active in our school. They are an integral part of CTE. They extend the CTE courses beyond the classroom, and they help to prepare students for leadership and career success. Funds will be continue to be allocated to support all 4 CTE SOs in the high school. There have been some new changes in accountability with the Perkins 5. CTE recognizes the need for performance-based assessments, and now they have a few other options for assessing students other than just taking that state assessment. CTE has adopted the title of Proof of Learning. Depending upon the course, students will now be assessed in 3 different ways. Depending on the course, it can be that they earn a credential. That is their proof of learning. They do not have to take a state test if they earn the credential. There are some courses that require just the state test, and then there are other courses that require the performance-based measure. We call it PBM. This performance-based measure demonstrates more effectively what students have learned. Students keep a portfolio and a checklist throughout the whole semester. Instead of an end-of-grade test, students are graded on projects, presentations, and other assignments throughout the semester. If students want to improve their score, they have the option of doing so by redoing their projects or presentations. At the end of the semester, the teacher turns in a PBM accountability form for each student as evidence of their proof of learning. This form is kept on file just like I have to keep on file the state test results. So it is a great way for students to be assessed all along the way in their course, and so it's not just at the end of the year they're taking a 100-question test. It's been really helpful with ag this year. That's ag and health science are the 2 areas that we've had the PBMs, and our teachers love that because it truly shows what the student is learning by their hands-on experiences that they're having and making those checklists instead of just studying for an end-of-grade test. They're showing their proficiency through hands-on learning opportunities. So we've had some changes in the middle school, and of course a lot of this got started this year, but of course, you know, with COVID and all, we're just doing the best we can. But we've had a lot of good changes, and hopefully next year we're going to see a lot more results because we're going to be back to normal. But I think it's really good changes. For instance, so in the middle school, a computer skills and application course has been implemented for the 7th grade. High school teachers requested that students have a better understanding of skills in Google searching, bookmarking, and naming and organizing files. So the students have a lot of data and information coming to them, and they just did not know how to organize that. And so I'm sure as a teacher it'd get very frustrating for students sitting there trying to figure out where their file is, and also that's something to us may be simple, but for students it's something that needs to be covered. So that's one area that will be covered in that course before they go to high school, as well as the need for students to be more familiar with creating spreadsheets and charts. This course will continue to improve on the keyboarding skills gained in the 6th grade, includes the modules in Google Success 101, word processing, presentation, and spreadsheets. All these modules will help students communicate more effectively and be more successful in all their courses. The 8th grade, Exploring Careers in Employment, will have a focus on digital media. Mr. Hyatt teaches this course, and he plans to incorporate a school broadcast within this course. Another course that has been added to the 8th grade is Computer Science Discoveries. This is a course designed and supported by North Carolina State's Friday Institute. Their mission is to empower students to create and engage in computer science. This course will help build the computer engineering program in the high school. Mr. Schuler will teach the Computer Science Discoveries course in addition to the Project Lead the Way courses that are already established. So this has been a very quick rundown of what was implemented this past year. While we didn't have the gusto we wanted due to COVID, CTE students are still learning. They're earning credentials and had hands-on learning experiences. They were often modified, but teachers and students made the best of the situation. I feel very positive about next school year. The CTE enrollment numbers have increased in most all program areas, and I'm looking forward to having the buses back on the road, taking students to competitions, college visits, business and industry tours, and to their CTESO conventions. I would like to invite you to come visit our classrooms. I'll be happy to do a tour either as a group or individually. Anytime that you would love to want to come on over, we'd love to have you. We're doing great things and we want to show it off. So, does anyone have any questions?
I'd love to take you up on that offer. One thing I think we missed this year was not getting into the schools. And we just couldn't for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing that. I would love to go in and see some of these teachers teach, because we have good folks, and I think it helps us, and we can relay that back out to the community, what we see.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
I think that'd be great. I think there's a lot of opportunities there that the community does not realize
Right.
that is there for their students to take advantage of, that will help them down the road. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
At the last meeting, Mr. McKinney, I gave to each of you a fairly large packet of board policies. Most of those policies have very minor elements to them that really need to be reviewed. Somehow I neglected to give all of you, or any of you actually, 7510. 7510 has to do with some changes in the leave policy. Most of those changes had to do with COVID. And so I don't see anything major in there, but I apologize for not giving that to you. There are some policies that you may want to pay a little more attention to. 3460, only because of some of the words in it. And personally, I don't see anything major in 3460 to worry about, because I trust our staff. And that has to do with the social studies curriculum, particularly. 6125, there was a wording change. Carol Schell has asked that we change the words controlled substance to stored medication, just to broaden that a little bit, and I don't see any problem with that. I don't want to sit and go through each of these unless you want me to. I do believe I need to draw your attention to policy number 2310. It has to do with the timing and the order of these meetings. In other districts, there has been a level of difficulty in interruptions from the public that some people who felt that they didn't need to abide by policy or procedure. And I believe that 2310 came to us to emphasize the fact that there is policy, procedure, and control at board meetings. The only thing that I see that we need to change there, if you want to, is to place public comment at the end rather than at the beginning, because in the policy that was sent to us, it says it'll be at the beginning. Now, I personally don't care where we have it, but that has been our tradition. So if you want to change that, I don't see that that's that big of a deal. There is no guidance in statute 115C51 that tells us where to have it. I think we could change that just if you want to, okay? Another important one for us to consider is 7232. I would encourage you to read that one very carefully. That has to do with some of the cultural changes that are happening across the country, and some of the wording that has to do with harassment and sexual harassment. We will need training on that, both as a board and as a school system. I don't see that we need to not approve 7232. We just need to be aware of the wording. I believe that's very important. Policy 4400, in my opinion, is a critical set of changes. If you compare what has been given to us to what's in our policy manual now, there are significant changes in expectations for parents. Dr. Sutton is looking into that with me, and we're going to see that it fits our culture, but also there is a need for us to perhaps strengthen our attendance policy, and also to strengthen our expectation for late arrivals and early dismissals. There are there is a propensity of that, and that impacts the growth and the ability of students to get the information that they need for education. So he and I will be bringing that policy to you later. I want to set that one aside for right now, okay? The only other one that I would draw your attention to is 2610, and Campbell Shatley recommends that we do not approve that policy, that we leave 2610 the way that it is. And that has to do with access to legal counsel by school employees. It's not that I don't want our employees to have access, but that could be a financial burden if everybody picks up the phone and calls Chris Campbell. So I agree with him on that. I don't really see a need personally to go into any more detail on these since it's first reading. However, if any of you want to discuss any of them, I will do my best.
Anybody got any questions about any of them?
We tried to break them down for you and help you understand kind of what they're saying. I think that we did that fairly effectively. Okay? So tonight would be our first reading of those, and then at the meeting on June 28th, we'll bring them back to you for second reading. Isn't that the correct date? 28th, 29th? 29th.
Yeah.
June 29th it is then. Tell you what, you be there on the 29th and I'll be there on the 28th. Now, our other genius in the room is going to come and bring us up to date on our budget amendments. Miss Treadway.
She wouldn't come. Good evening. I have budget amendments proposed for tonight's meeting. First, for State Public School Fund. This time of the year, actually by May 31st, we have to put in any what they call ABC transfers. There are a few programs, PRCs, with state money where you can move money around. So if you anticipate that you're not going to spend all the money in one program, then we can move it to another. So I have moved $57,000 from transportation just because of COVID. Our expenditures were lower. We had a lot more funding in other areas. So I've moved $57,000 to 019, which is our small county funds, which are just have a little bit more flexibility, and therefore if we still need it for some transportation expenditures throughout June, then we can still tap into those and get that. I had an ABC transfer of $22,134 from textbook allotment. Since there are really no resources in the textbook warehouse anymore, we transfer those funds and use them for digital resources. And so that's $22,134. We had a few, when we get allotments for building administrators, it comes in months of employment. And so we had about 3 months of employment that we were able to move, and I also moved that into 019, and that was $13,846. We also got, the rest of them were just really to reallocate by purpose code, just trying to use up all of our state funding. We've just moved people from local to state to try to make sure that we utilize all of our state funding. So that's just to reallocate by purpose code. Local current expense, I just adjusted our revenues to actuals. We received our timber receipts, and we were actually received $12,970 more than what we had originally budgeted, so that brought it to $21,970. However, our fines and forfeitures were down this year just because of COVID and not having as much court and fines received in the court system. So that was a reduction of $37,000. So I have reduced some operational costs by $24,000. We usually will reallocate and put some of our electricity and utilities in Fund 8 at the end of the year once we see where we're at with our budget. Federal, we had quite a bit of activity in our federal. Also on the agenda tonight will be the approval of our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, which are also part of our amendments. Anytime it's not in our original budget appropriation at the beginning of the year, I just include that in our amendments as well, but I'll go into more detail on those. However, the amendments on here, we did receive $10,000 in PRC 082, which is our NC SIP program for school improvement. That helps provide professional development for math and literacy. So that was $10,000. We received $1,426,351 for ESSER 1. And we received $3,195,195 in ESSER 2. And then we were also able to finally submit our 21st century grant budget for, which was just our carryover. We had $114,904, and we had to wait to the end of the year to submit that. The state did not want us to submit that just because of COVID and not being able to do a lot with after school and having the ESSER and CARES Act money to utilize for our after school. So that's been budgeted for now and will most likely be used just for after school next year. If you'll flip behind those budget amendments, I have some nice colorful printouts that I used all my my copy allotment on, so by using color. I never use color, but here you go. So the first one is on ESSER 2, which is Supplemental K-12 Emergency Relief Fund. ESSER 2 expires September 30, 2023, so we have this for the next 2 years. As mentioned before, we received $1,426,351. And I have it broken down by the allowable use. In the application, they had sections of allowable use. The first section was principal resources, which we budgeted $320,864. That's 22% of the total allotment. And that was to provide an instructional coach for 2 years and a dean of students for 2 years. Also within that, we have some workshop money, contracted services, and supplies money. So to provide professional development, substitute teachers in case professional development requires a teacher to be out of the classroom, and then some supplies and materials for additional aids and for our instructional coaches. The next section was learning loss. There's 15% of our budget of $219,000. And that was for some computer software, and that's software that we'll be using for assessments and instruction.
Yes, it's for both.
Yeah, Achieve 3000.
Achieve 3000 at the middle
iReady.
school, which is basically an online textbook that allows the students to read material that is prescribed more for their reading ability. And then it also diagnoses where their reading ability is as they progress, and it allows us to track their growth. The other is iReady, and that'll be, Brandon, am I correct, kindergarten through 10th grade?
I think there is some non-curriculum yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely K-8.
It's definitely K-8, and the reason that we're looking at that is our diagnostic and prescriptive tools for math and reading have kind of been all over the place. We're using this, that, and this and that. And we really have not been able to do a longitudinal tracking of student growth, and this will allow us to do that for the first time using the same program. This is very widely used, and it has been well received by our pilot team here in Swain County. So I think it's a good expenditure of money for us.
The next section is mental health, and we budgeted 13% of our funding of $190,434. And that will be to provide 2 psychologists for 1 year. And also, Mr. Sell explained last month that we're also have $20,000 in tuition reimbursement to help encourage others to go back to school and explore a degree
In school psychology. And
so.
how many, Brendan, how many teachers have you had show interest in that? Three.
Have shown interest. It's just finding someone now to partner with to offer a program for working professionals.
That's a good idea. We got one.
Mm-hmm.
That was what took a year and a half to get.
That's right.
8% of the budget for education technology, and that's $113,980, and that will be to provide hotspots or subscriptions, annual subscription for hotspots. 32% will be for our summer extension learning and enrichment program, and that is $459,459. That's 32% of the budget. 5% will be for facility repairs of $70,000. That will be for the water abatement, and also we have a classroom that we're having to remodel in order to get rid of some mold and issues, some moisture issues.
There's moisture issues, and it's been unusable this year, so it's taken quite a bit of money to get that cleared out. The other piece is there's some severe gutter needs at East and West Elementary, and you would be shocked at how much it costs to replace guttering at a school. So that's not cheap. I wanted to draw attention to that summer extension and learning for $459,000. We have over 400 students right now that are going to be at our summer program starting next Monday, and it's growing. 400 students. So if you look at the cost per student on that, that's pretty good expenditure, you know.
And the last part is, I just grouped it into other, which is indirect cost of $51,672, and then $940 right now unbudgeted. So the next page is the ESSER 3, which will expire September 30, 2024. That's $3,195,195. The one requirement of ESSER 3 is that we would spend 20% of that on learning loss. So you can see a pretty big section of learning loss, which totals $629,133. And that is to provide 2 elementary teachers, 2 elementary assistants, an instructional coach for 1 year, and an ADINA student for 1 year. Each of those are for 1 year. Also, to continue our contract with Leader in Me, or Cubby for Leader in Me of $180,000, and once again some workshop funding of $10,000. Also, as part of the learning loss, most after-school programs we already have for K-8, K-8, that's right. So the 21st century funds are used for K-8, so we needed some additional funding set aside for pre-K and for high school. And so we've put after school for that into this budget. We have 7% for another summer extended learning it'll be for 21-22. And then we have some unbudgeted that if we needed it, possibly it could be for another 3rd year of extended learning. 2% of education technology is $56,990 for another year of hotspot subscriptions. And then the majority of this one, 58% of the budget, is for facilities and air quality. We have $100,000 in there for to have a facilities and environmental study done, and also for some HVAC. And then other improvements to sites will be some water stations and ionization.
The facilities and environmental studies are currently out in RFP. We have 2 architecture firms that are looking at them. We should have responses on those by the end of this month. And those studies should be completed early fall. And that will allow us then to address the HVAC element to see what's needed where. So don't just assume that 1.7 million is contracted out. That's a reserve until we know exactly what we have to deal with.
Is that above what we did with Snyder?
Yes.
That was the missing pieces we could not move forward.
Yes.
Start with.
And then other, we have the $34,618 in indirect cost. Our indirect cost is a lot lower, even though the funding's much higher, because the majority of the budget is for facilities and there's no indirect cost taken on capital. So, and then in unbudgeted, we have 210,000, like I said, just because this is extended out till 2024 and we just really don't know what our
We
needs are
don't
gonna be, so. I also gave you just a budget to actual, just for information purposes, but if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me.
You have any questions for Ms. Treadway? I told you she's a genius, didn't I? Mhm.
Thank
I'm always
you.
afraid to ask her a question. She'll make me what I know about what she talking about.
Yeah.
No, don't ever be afraid. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all of our discussion items. It's time to move into action. And if you're prepared, Mr. McKinney, we can go that direction.
Let's go that way.
All right. I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve the minutes of the May 10, 2021 open session meeting and the May 10, 2021 closed session, as well as the May 26th, 2021 special called meeting.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Motion.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the CTE local application as presented to you.
All right, motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Okay, motion's carried.
We're going to break those budget pieces down into two sections, okay? I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 budgets as Ms. Treadway presented them to you.
Okay, motion and a second.
Move to approve the ESER 2 and ESER 3 budget as presented.
Second.
All right, any discussion on it? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I also recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the budget amendments as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second on it?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
The remainder of the action items are personnel, and if you feel appropriate for us to go into closed session, this would be a good time to do that.
Do we have a motion on that? Did you make that?
Yeah, I'll move we go into closed session. Swain County School will go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, and not public record of North Carolina General Statute 143, 318.11A1.
Second. All those in favor by show of hands? We'll be back shortly. All right, let's call the meeting back to order, and we will go to E, personnel.
Ms. McKinney, I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education accept the resignation of Philip Burkhart as teacher at Swain East Elementary effective August 1st, 2021.
Do we have a motion and a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
Philip Burkhart's a fine man, and that is a significant loss for East and for our students there.
Is he retiring? I mean,
He is retiring.
okay.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education accept the resignation of Emily Alexander as a teacher at Swain East Elementary effective June 30th, 2021.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education employ Carly Wilcox as a teacher at Swain West Elementary effective August 9th, 2021.
Okay, motion and a second?
Motion.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education employ Amanda Sutton as principal of the summer program. This is in addition to the duties that she's carrying as assistant principal.
Okay.
Motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
There is one name on the next list, on this next recommendation that I will leave out, and that's because there are some licensure clearances that we need to take care of first, okay?
Okay.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education renew the one-year contract of the following: Kenneth Haney and Gray Lakey.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I don't know if this one is written in or not,
Not.
okay? I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education accept the retirement of Billy Clemens effective July 1st, 2021.
All right, with a motion and second?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just very sad to lose her. She's just great teacher,
Mhm.
and it's be hard to replace her, that's for sure.
Believe it or not, I recommend her hiring. Back in, I won't start to say 1890s. She killed me.
Yes, you would.
A long time ago, and that was good. Her and Sonia came in the same year, so I did one or two things right, and that was a couple of them right there. But I do hate to see her go. Good, great teacher. All right, all those, we had a motion second, right?
Yes.
All those in favor by show of hands. All right, motion carried.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education employ Neil Blankenship as the head football coach.
All right, we have a motion second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor by show of hands? Motion is carried.
Those are all of our personnel elements tonight. I don't know about public comment.
Anybody sign up, Joanne? All right. Let's move on to information.
You see the dates there for summer camp. Like I said, it starts next Monday. It'll run for 3 weeks. We have 400+ students. Kindergarten Academy is the last week of July, the first week of August. July 5th is a holiday. A lot of our central office and maintenance staff and some others are working 410s right now. However, we are making sure that beginning next Monday, we have people in the critical places 5 days a week. Now, it may mean that we're shifting some people to 410s on Monday through Thursday and the others on Tuesday through Friday. But we'll have people in place for that, particularly in maintenance at the bus garage. Our cafeteria staff will be working 5 days a week because they'll be providing meals. And then our central office staff will be working 410s.
You said 400 students? That's nearly
400
50%,
plus.
isn't it?
400 plus. I believe, Mr. McKinney, that we could be pushing 410 right now.
Good.
About 3 weeks ago, we were at 383. And then after EOCs and EOGs came through, we found the need to offer this to some more students. Regina Ash has asked that I share with you that the title programs, Title I, II, 4A, and 5B, are in development and will be submitted shortly. They don't have to be submitted until September 30th, but I know Regina, and she'll have them done well ahead of time. Her life is complicated right now with some medical treatments that her husband's getting ready to go through that are really extensive. And so she just wants you to know that she's on the ball for that. And our yearly closeout meeting will be June 29th, and I assume that we can meet in here. If not, I'll let you know, okay?
Now, we have one the 17th.
Of this month?
Yeah.
Not that I remember.
Where did I see that?
I don't know.
There must be some other meeting ahead. Huh?
No, we have a July meeting, which is a July meeting, which is the 19th? Is that right? It says July 19th on the next page. You're right. That's our regular meeting.
I think that's when maybe I wrote down and we changed it.
Okay.
I just saw it on the counter. Okay.
I need to let you know that Jared Turbyfield is going to be transferring to 6th grade math in place of Ryan McMahon. Jared has been teaching extreme reading, which is a program for students who need some supplemental reading support. And Gray Lakey is going to be transferring into that position that Jared has been fulfilling this year, which is the reading interventionist. She had been in the media center as our media coordinator specialist until COVID. And then we had the opportunity for Gray to get into a classroom and actually teach English, English ELA. And she's found that she would like to continue to teach. So now we'll probably be in the market for somebody for the media center.
Good.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
And I need to let you know that Mr. Wilson has been appointed to the SEC Board of Trustees for another term. That was approved by the Jackson County Board of Education last week or the week before.
Good.
And other than that, I believe that's all.
I'd like to make one comment for us to all be with thoughts and prayers for Miss Joyce Hurley, one of our employees, a future past employee, losing her husband shortly after, 3 months maybe, losing her son, and such a sweet lady that we all love and cherish. And I know we do, but our thoughts and prayers go out to her and her family. Anything else? All right, I'll have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All right, the second to that. All right, all in favor by standing up and adjourning.
Thank you all.
Thank you.